For much of my career, I've been fascinated by the idea of reincarnation. It's a concept that has been around for centuries, woven into the fabric of many cultures and religions. But within the scientific community, it's often been dismissed as something outside the realm of serious study. However, in recent years, there's been a shift. More and more researchers are taking a closer look at cases that suggest reincarnation might be more than just a belief. These cases, often involving young children who seem to remember details of past lives, are difficult to explain away. As Nikola Tesla, a man who understood the power of looking beyond the ordinary, once said, "The day science begins to study non-material phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." I believe we are on the verge of such a decade. One of the cases that piqued my interest early on was that of Sam Taylor. Sam's story is particularly striking because his memories began to surface when he was just a toddler. Can you imagine, at barely a year old, having memories that seem to predate your own existence?
When I was your age, I changed your diaper like that.
Sam's grandfather had passed away 18 months before he was born, and it wasn't long before Sam began sharing details about his grandfather's life. These weren't vague recollections, they were specific, sometimes even humorous anecdotes. He spoke about his grandfather's life with an eerie familiarity. He remembered how his grandfather's parents had been frustrated with him because he struggled to learn to cross the street. He talked about his grandfather's sister and how she had been murdered. He even recalled the tender way his grandfather's wife had cared for him in his final days. These details, so specific and so personal, were later confirmed by Sam's family. They were moments that Sam had no way of knowing through normal means. Yet he spoke of them as if he had lived them himself. Cases like Sam's make us question what we think we know about memory, consciousness, and the very nature of life and death. How can a young child possess memories that seem to belong to someone else? Someone they never even met? These are the questions that drive my research and the research of others in this field. We are searching for answers, for explanations that can help us make sense of these extraordinary experiences. Ryan's story emerged from the world of dreams. At 4, he began experiencing vivid nightmares. These were intense, unsettling dreams.
I used to be someone else.
At 5, he told his mother, "Cindy, I used to be someone else." He talked about going home to Hollywood. He described a glamorous life, contrasting his Midwest upbringing. He mentioned meeting Rita Hayworth and dancing on Broadway. He spoke of working at a talent agency. He remembered living on a street with the word rock. Cindy was taken aback by the detail in Ryan's stories. She got a Hollywood book from the library. Things took a strange turn. Ryan pointed to a picture and exclaimed,
That's me, that's who I was.
The photo was from a 1930s film called Night After Night. The man Ryan identified was Marty Martin, a Hollywood agent who died in 1964. Cindy contacted me, and I was astounded by the connections. Ryan described Martin's life from Broadway to his address in Beverly Hills. He knew about Martin's trips to Paris. He knew the number of times Martin had been married, and even the number of children he had. Ryan recalled over 55 specific details about Martin's life. Chanai Chumalaiwong's story takes us to Thailand, where at the age of 3, he began talking about a teacher named Bua Kai, who had been tragically shot and killed. But Chanai didn't just speak about this teacher. He insisted that Bua Kai was his former life. He would plead with his family, begging them to take him to Bua Kai's parents, whom he considered his own. He described the village where they lived, details that were completely unfamiliar to his family. Eventually, his grandmother, moved by his persistence, agreed to take him there. What happened next is both astonishing and heartbreaking. According to Chanai's grandmother, as soon as they got off the bus in the village, Chanai led her directly to the home of Bua Kai's elderly parents. He recognized them instantly, calling them Mom and Dad.
Mom, Dad!
Bua Kai had been shot and killed 5 years before Chanai was born, shot from behind while riding his motorcycle to school. The details of his death were particularly chilling. He had a small round bullet wound on the back of his head and a larger irregular wound on his forehead where the bullet exited. What's even more intriguing is that Chanai was born with two distinct birthmarks. One, a small round mark on the back of his head, corresponded with the entry wound on Buakai's head. The other, a larger, irregularly shaped birthmark on his forehead, aligned with the exit wound. The case of PM is particularly poignant because it involves the death of a young child and the subsequent birth of his brother, who seems to carry memories of that short life. PM's older brother had died from a brain tumour, glioblastoma, when he was only 2 years old. His brother's illness had been a harrowing experience for the family. It began with a limp, then a fall that broke his left leg. The diagnosis of glioblastoma brought with it surgery, chemotherapy and radiation, leaving the young boy with hair loss and noticeable lesions on his head and right ear. He was also left blind in his left eye. 12 years later, PM was born. From the start, there were unusual similarities between the two brothers. PM was born with 3 birthmarks that corresponded precisely with the locations of the lesions on his deceased brother's body. Even more striking, PM was also blind in his left eye. As PM began to walk, his parents noticed he had a limp, favouring his left leg just like his brother. Then, at around 4.5 years old, PM began talking about wanting to go back to their old house. He described the house in detail, details that were accurate but that he had never been told. He also spoke about his brother's head surgery, describing it in a way that sent chills down his parents' spines. PM had never been told about the surgery, yet he spoke about it with an eerie familiarity.
I was the baby in her belly.
Kendra Carter's story revolves around a unique bond she formed with her swimming coach when she was just 4 years old. From the moment they met, Kendra seemed drawn to her coach, and it wasn't long before she started sharing startling information. Kendra began talking about how her coach had lost a baby, how the baby had gotten sick and had to be pushed out before it was ready. Kendra's mother, who had been present during these conversations, was baffled. She asked Kendra how she knew such a thing, and Kendra's reply was both simple and unsettling. I was the baby in her belly. What made this even more astonishing was the level of detail Kendra possessed about the premature birth. She described the experience with a clarity and conviction that belied her young age. Later, Kendra's mother discovered that her coach had indeed given birth prematurely 9 years before Kendra was born.
That's where my plane was shot down. That's the kind of plane I flew.
James Leininger's case is perhaps one of the most well-known and extensively documented cases of possible reincarnation. At the age of 2, James, who lived in Louisiana, began having vivid nightmares, waking up screaming about plane crashes and fire in the plane. His parents, initially attributing it to active imagination, soon realized there was something more to it. James became fixated on airplanes, particularly World War II aircraft. He would draw pictures of planes with meticulous detail, often depicting them being shot down or on fire. He even began building model airplanes, displaying a knowledge of aircraft components that was far beyond his years. He would talk about his time as a pilot in World War II, claiming he had been shot down over Iwo Jima, a fierce battleground in the Pacific during the war. He insisted his name was James in his past life, and that he had flown a plane called a Corsair. One day, while looking at a book about World War II, James pointed to a picture of Iwo Jima and said, "That's where my plane was shot down." He also pointed to a picture of a Corsair and said, "That's the kind of plane I flew." James's father, Bruce, began researching World War II history, trying to make sense of his son's pronouncements. He discovered that there had indeed been a pilot named James Houston Jr., who had flown a Corsair with a squadron called the Natoma Bay Patriots during the Battle of Iwo Jima. James Houston had been killed in action when his plane was hit by enemy fire and crashed into the sea. These cases, while just a glimpse into the world of reincarnation research, represent the kind of compelling evidence that keeps me searching for answers. The children we study, these young minds who seem to hold memories that defy conventional explanation, challenge us to expand our understanding of consciousness and the nature of reality. While we may not have all the answers, the evidence we are gathering suggests that there is more to the human experience than meets the eye. Perhaps, as we delve deeper into these mysteries, we will uncover truths that have the potential to revolutionize our understanding of life, death, and what it means to be human. For now, the journey continues, driven by curiosity, compassion, and a deep respect for the mysteries that lie at the heart of the human experience.